I thought my grandmother just left me memories. Then the lawyer looked at me and said, "This part is yours." My brother laughed. "Wait, all of it?" My mom went quiet. Papers slid across the table with my name. And suddenly, everyone was staring at me like I wasn't who they thought I was. The truth was, I wasn't. And the worst part is, I don't think I ever was. I just learned early how to make it easier for everyone else if I pretended to be. I didn't walk into that room expecting anything. Not really. The drive to Ithaca felt routine, almost like a chore. Cold morning, gray sky, that kind of quiet that settles into your bones when you're heading somewhere you don't really want to be. Funerals have that effect. You don't cry the whole time. Most of it is just waiting, sitting, listening to people talk about someone you knew in ways that feel both true and incomplete. My grandmother wasn't loud. She didn't take up space the way some people do. But she noticed things. Small things. The kind of things people don't realize they're revealing. Like the way I always sat a little straighter when I was around my parents. Or how I answered questions too carefully, like I was editing myself in real time. She never called it out. She just made space for me to stop doing it when I was with her. I didn't realize how rare that was until she was gone. The service itself blurred together. People hugging. Whispered condolences. My mom thanking everyone like she was hosting something instead of grieving. My dad shaking hands, nodding, keeping everything controlled. Michael stood near the front most of the time. Confident. Grounded. Like he always was in these situations. He was good at being seen. I stayed toward the back. Not hiding. Just not stepping forward either. That had always been the pattern. After everything wrapped up, Thomas Clark approached me near the exit. "Sarah," he said, his voice calm, professional. "When you have a moment, I'd like to schedule a time to go over your grandmother's will." I remember pausing. "Mine?" I asked. He didn't smile. Didn't hesitate. Yes. That was the first moment something felt off. Not wrong. Just unexpected. I didn't push it. I just nodded, gave him my number, and left it at that. The drive back to Buffalo should have felt heavy. It didn't. It felt quiet in a different way. Like something had shifted slightly out of place, but I couldn't see where yet. I went back to my apartment, made dinner, opened my laptop, and tried to fall back into routine. That's what I always did. Routine made things simple. Work emails. Data reports. Numbers that made sense. Patterns that followed logic. Unlike people. A week later, I drove back to Ithaca for the will reading. Same gray sky. Same long stretch of road. But this time, there was a tension sitting under everything. Not anxiety. Anticipation. I walked into the office and saw them already there. My parents sat side by side at the table. My mom's posture straight, controlled. My dad quiet, hands folded. Michael leaned back in his chair, one arm resting casually like he owned the room. Linda sat next to him, polite smile, but her eyes moved more than usual. Taking everything in. I took the last seat. No one said anything about me being late or early. No one said anything at all. Thomas closed the door, took his seat, and started. He moved through it methodically. Clean. Efficient. Personal items first. Jewelry. Furniture. Donations. My mom nodded along. Michael barely reacted. It all felt expected. Then Thomas paused. Just slightly. And something in the room shifted. "The remainder of the estate," he said, looking down at the document, including the primary residence, associated land, and all financial accounts. He stopped again. Looked up. At me. "Will be transferred in full to Sarah White." And just like that, everything changed. I didn't react right away. Not because I was calm. Because my brain didn't catch up. It was like hearing a sentence in a language you understand, but your mind refuses to process it. Michael let out a short laugh. "Wait," he said. "All of it." Thomas nodded. "Yes." My mom's voice came out quieter than I'd ever heard it. "But why?" No one answered. Because there wasn't an answer that fit the version of the world she'd been living in. I looked down at the paper when Thomas slid it toward me. My name. Clear. Final. No shared ownership. No conditions. Everything. And in that moment, something inside me settled. Not excitement. Not shock. Something steadier. Like a piece of myself I'd kept small for too long finally had room to exist. The room didn't stay quiet for long. Not after that. Because confusion doesn't stay silent. It starts asking questions. Michael leaned forward, elbows on the table now. "Okay," he said slowly, "so what does that actually mean in terms of handling everything?" Handling. There it was. Thomas explained. Legal transfer. Timeline. Responsibilities. I barely heard it. Because I wasn't listening to him anymore. I was listening to the shift in tone around me. To the way my mom started glancing at me instead of past me. To the way my dad's posture changed, like he was reassessing something. To the way Michael stopped looking relaxed. And started calculating. That was the moment I understood. Nothing about me had changed. But their view of me had. And that was going to matter more than anything written on that paper. The drive back was quiet again. But this time, it wasn't empty. It was full of things no one was saying. And I realized something sitting in that car, staring out at the road ahead. I had spent most of my life fitting into a version of myself that made everything easier for them. Smaller. Simpler. Less. And now, I didn't have to anymore. I just hadn't decided yet what that would look like. Or how far I was willing to go with it. The drive back from Ithaca didn't feel like coming home. It felt like something had been quietly rearranged, and no one wanted to admit it yet. Michael drove. Same as always. My dad sat in the passenger seat. My mom and I were in the back. The exact same positions we'd had for years. That part didn't change. But everything else did. No music. No small talk. Just the sound of the tires against the road and this thick, uncomfortable silence that kept building the longer it stretched. Michael was gripping the wheel tighter than usual. Not obvious. Just enough that you'd notice if you were looking for it. And I was. My mom finally spoke, her voice soft, almost careful. I just don't understand why she would do that. Not why she chose you. Just why. That mattered more than she probably realized. My dad shifted slightly in his seat. There could be something we're missing, he said. Another document, maybe? There isn't, I said. 3 heads turned. That was probably the first time I'd spoken more than a few words all day. Michael glanced at me in the rearview mirror. You're sure? Yes. I didn't explain. I didn't need to. My grandmother didn't leave loose ends. She wasn't careless. If she wrote something down, it was because she meant it. The car went quiet again. But this time, it wasn't the same silence I grew up with. Before, silence meant I wasn't part of the conversation. Now, it meant they didn't know how to have one without me. We pulled into the driveway of my parents' house in Amherst, and for a second, no one moved. Like we were all waiting for someone else to decide what this moment meant. I opened the door first. I'm heading back to Buffalo, I said. My mom blinked. You're not staying? I have work. She nodded, slower than usual. Okay, just text when you get home. That was new. No one had ever asked me to check in before. I drove off before anyone could say anything else. The road back felt longer. Or maybe I just wasn't trying to rush through it like I usually did. Because my mind kept drifting backward. Not to the will. To everything before it. All the small things I used to brush off. The kind of moments you don't question when they're happening, but later, they don't sit right anymore. Michael got his first car at 16. I remember standing in the driveway, watching my dad hand him the keys like it was some kind of ceremony. It's important for his future, my dad said. My mom nodded. He needs independence. I had just turned 15. I didn't ask for anything. Not because I didn't want to. Because I already knew the answer. A year later, when I needed help paying for a summer program, my mom looked at the brochure like it was unreasonable. Do you really need this? She asked. It would help with college applications, I said. She sighed. We'll see. We didn't. Michael got an internship that same summer through one of my dad's friends. It's about connections, my dad told him. You have to take opportunities when they're given. I remember sitting at the kitchen table while they talked about it. No one asked if I needed opportunities too. I stopped bringing things up after that. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a decision I announced. It just happened. I learned to work around them instead of through them. Community college instead of pushing for something bigger. Part-time jobs instead of asking for support. I told them I was figuring things out. They accepted that easily. It fit their version of me. The one who didn't need as much. The one who didn't expect much. The one who wouldn't go far enough to challenge anything. And the thing is, I made it easy for them to believe that. Because arguing didn't change anything. It just made things uncomfortable. So I stopped. By the time I transferred into a teaching program, no one questioned it. It's stable, my mom said. That's good, my dad added. Michael didn't say anything. He never needed to. He was already on a different path. Corporate job. Promotions. A life that looked like it was moving forward at the right speed. Meanwhile, I was the one who stayed quiet, stayed local, stayed manageable. That word doesn't sound bad until you realize what it actually means. Easy to overlook. Easy to dismiss. Easy to underestimate. I leaned into it. Not because I believed it. Because it gave me space. No one paid close attention to what I was doing. And that meant I could build something without commentary. Without comparison. Without being measured against someone else. By 28, I had my own apartment in Buffalo. Small. Clean. Mine. I told my parents I was doing okay. They didn't ask for details. They didn't need them. As long as I wasn't struggling enough to worry them, and not succeeding enough to disrupt anything, everything stayed comfortable. Michael's life, on the other hand, looked exactly how they expected. Big house in Williamsville. Nice neighborhood. Good schools. Linda kept everything running. Organized. Controlled. From the outside, it looked solid. But every now and then, small things slipped through. Comments that didn't quite land right. Stress that showed up in the wrong moments. I remember one dinner, maybe a year ago. We were all at my parents' house, same table, same routine. Michael was talking about work. Something about budgets, restructuring, numbers that weren't lining up. It's temporary, he said quickly, like he needed to say it out loud to make it true. Just a rough quarter. Linda didn't look at him when she spoke. We had to move some things around, she said. It's fine. My mom nodded immediately. Of course it is. You'll figure it out. My dad added, you always do. And that was it. No questions. No concern. Just automatic confidence. If it had been me, it would have been different. I would have been asked what went wrong. What I should have done differently. Whether I needed help managing things. But Michael? He was given the benefit of the doubt before anyone even understood the situation. I sat there, listening. Watching. Noticing. The way Linda's hands tightened around her glass. The way Michael changed the subject too quickly. The way my parents didn't want to look too closely. That was the pattern. And once you see a pattern clearly, you can't unsee it. By the time my grandmother got sick, I had already understood something about my place in the family. I just hadn't decided what to do with it yet. And maybe she had. Because when I started visiting her more often, something shifted. Not in a big, obvious way. Just in the way she looked at me. Like she was paying attention to something no one else bothered to notice. One afternoon, I was sitting with her on the back porch in Ithaca. It was quiet. Wind moving through the trees. Nothing dramatic. She poured tea slowly, careful with her hands. You don't tell them much, she said. I looked up. About what? Your life, she replied. I shrugged. They don't really ask. She smiled slightly. That's not the same thing. I didn't answer. Because she wasn't wrong. I just didn't feel like explaining why. She didn't push. She never did. But she kept watching. And now, sitting in my car outside my apartment in Buffalo, after everything that had just happened, I realized something. She hadn't just been watching. She had been understanding. Long before anyone else did. And maybe, that's why she made the decision she did. Not because I needed anything, but because she knew exactly what would happen when everyone else realized I never did. The messages started the next morning. Not all at once. Not dramatic. Just steady. My mom first. Good morning. Just checking in. Did you get home okay? I stared at it for a second longer than I should have. That wasn't how she usually texted me. I typed back, yeah, I'm home. She replied almost immediately. Okay, good. Call me later when you have time. Not if. Not when you feel like it. When? I didn't call. Not right away. I made coffee, opened my laptop, and pulled up my work dashboard like it was any other day. Numbers, reports, clean patterns that made sense. It grounded me. Because everything else didn't. By noon, my dad had texted too. Let me know when you want to go over everything. I can help. Help. That word again. I didn't respond to that one at all. Michael waited until the afternoon. Of course he did. He always timed things. Hey, his message read. We should talk. There's a lot to figure out. No greeting. No build-up. Straight to it. I read it twice. Then locked my phone. They weren't wrong. There was a lot to figure out. Just not in the way they thought. The next few days settled into something controlled. Not calm. Controlled. I answered just enough to keep things from escalating. Short replies. Delayed responses. I'm busy with work. I'll look into it. I'll let you know. I didn't offer details. I didn't invite conversation. And for the first time in my life, they didn't push past that boundary. They hovered around it. Carefully. Like they weren't sure how much they were allowed to ask anymore. That alone told me everything had shifted. By the end of the week, Michael called. I let it ring once. Twice. Then I picked up. Hey, I said. Hey, he replied, voice even. Too even. You busy? Yes. A pause. Okay. I'll keep it quick, he said. I've been thinking about everything. Of course you have. And? I asked. I just think we need to sit down and go through it properly, he continued. Not over the phone. There's a lot there, and I want to make sure you're not overwhelmed. Overwhelmed. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. I'm not, I said. Another pause. Longer this time. Right, he said. I just mean, it's a lot of responsibility. The property, the accounts, managing all of that isn't simple. I know. You've never handled something like this before. That almost made me laugh. But I kept my voice steady. You don't know that, I said. Silence. Not confusion. Adjustment. I just don't want you making decisions too quickly, he added. There it was. Not concern. Control, wrapped carefully in something that sounded like concern. I'm not making any decisions yet, I said. That part was true. Good, he replied quickly. Because we should talk about how to approach it. Together. Together. I didn't say no. I didn't say yes. I'll let you know, I said. Then I ended the call. I sat there for a minute after, phone still in my hand. Because something about that conversation confirmed what I already suspected. This wasn't going to be about understanding my grandmother's decision. It was going to be about undoing it. Just slowly, carefully, in a way that felt reasonable. That didn't make me look like the one being taken advantage of. And that meant I needed to understand exactly what they were dealing with. Not what they said. What they weren't saying. I drove to Williamsville that weekend. I didn't tell anyone I was coming. I just showed up. Michael answered the door, surprised. Hey, he said. I didn't know you were coming. I was nearby, I lied. He stepped aside. Come in. The house looked the same. Clean. Organized. Everything in place. But once you know what to look for, you start noticing things. Small things. The kind that don't stand out unless you're paying attention. The new couch wasn't there anymore. Replaced with an older one. The framed photo wall had a few empty spaces. The kitchen counter had unopened mail stacked neatly in one corner. Bills. I didn't need to open them to know. Linda came in from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. Sarah, she said, surprised but polite. Hi. Hi. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. How have you been? She asked. Busy, I said. She nodded like she understood something deeper than that. Yeah, she said quietly. I get that. Michael gestured toward the living room. Sit, he said. We were just about to have coffee. We, not him. That mattered. I sat down. Watched. Listened. They talked about normal things at first. Work. The kids. School schedules. But underneath it, there was tension. The kind that sits just under the surface, waiting for a reason to come out. It didn't take long. Michael leaned forward, elbows on his knees. So, he said, have you thought about it? I looked at him. About what? He exhaled slightly. The inheritance. There it was. Linda stayed quiet, watching both of us. I've thought about it, I said. And? I didn't answer right away. Instead, I glanced at the stack of mail on the counter. Are you behind on anything? I asked. The question landed harder than I expected. Michael froze. Just for a second. Linda looked at him. Then at me. What do you mean? He asked. I said calmly, are you behind on anything? He leaned back slightly, defensive now. No, he said. Why would you ask that? I held his gaze. You've always been good with money, right? That hit. Not loud, but sharp. Linda looked down. Michael's jaw tightened. We're fine, he said. Of course you are. I nodded. Okay. I didn't push further. I didn't need to, because I had already seen enough. The cracks weren't new. They were just easier to see now. And as I sat there, in that perfectly arranged living room, with everything looking exactly how it was supposed to, I realized something. They didn't need help managing my inheritance. They needed it. And that changed everything. Because now, this wasn't just about what my grandmother left me. It was about what they thought they could still take. The dinner happened 3 nights later. My mom called that morning, voice light, almost careful. We're all getting together tonight, she said. Just something small. You should come. Not, do you want to? You should. I said yes. Not because I felt obligated. Because I wanted to see how far this was going to go. By the time I got to Amherst, it already felt different. The house looked the same. Same porch light, same curtains, same quiet street. But inside, everything felt staged. Too neat. Too intentional. Like everyone had agreed, without saying it out loud, that tonight mattered. My dad was in the living room when I walked in. Hey, he said, standing up a little too quickly. You made it. I said I would. He nodded, like that meant more than it should. My mom came out of the kitchen, drying her hands. Hi, honey, she said. She hugged me. That wasn't unusual. But the way she held on for a second longer than normal? That was. Michael and Linda were already at the table. Michael looked up when I walked in, his expression neutral, controlled. Linda gave me a small smile. Hey, she said. Hey. We all sat down. Same table. Same seats. That part didn't change. Dinner started the way it always did. Small talk. Safe topics. Nothing real. My mom asked about work again. My dad talked about something he saw on the news. Linda mentioned the kids' school. Michael stayed quiet. Watching. Waiting. I could feel it. The moment was coming. It always does. It came halfway through dinner. Michael set his fork down, leaned back slightly, and looked at me. Okay, he said. I think we should just talk about it. There it was. My mom stiffened slightly. My dad didn't move. Linda looked down at her plate. I kept eating. What do you want to talk about? I asked. He exhaled, like he was trying to stay patient. The inheritance, he said. We've all been thinking about it. We. Not just him. I nodded slowly. And? It's a lot, he continued. The property alone, plus everything else. It's not something you should be dealing with on your own. There it was again. Not, can we help? You shouldn't. I put my fork down. Looked at him. I'm managing, I said. That's not the point, he replied quickly. The point is it affects all of us. I tilted my head slightly. How? He hesitated. Just for a second. then recovered. It's family, he said. That's how this works. Family. That word again. My mom finally spoke, her voice soft. We just don't want you to feel overwhelmed, she said. That's all. I looked at her, then at my dad, then back at Michael. You think I'm overwhelmed? I asked. No, my dad said quickly. Not overwhelmed, just inexperienced, Michael finished. There it was. Clear. Simple. Honest, for once. I let that sit. Let the silence stretch just enough to make it uncomfortable. Then I asked, when have I ever asked you for help? No one answered. Because the answer was obvious. Never. Michael shifted in his chair. That's not what this is about, he said. Then what is it about? I asked. He leaned forward again. It's about being realistic, he said. You got everything. That's fine. But it doesn't make sense to keep all of it to yourself. There it was. Not should. Not maybe. Doesn't make sense. I felt something settle in my chest. Not anger. Clarity. I see, I said quietly. My mom looked between us, uneasy now. We're not saying you have to give anything up, she added quickly. Just maybe share some of the responsibility. Responsibility. That word again. Everything they were saying sounded reasonable. If you didn't look too closely. I leaned back slightly in my chair. Let me ask you something, I said. Michael didn't respond. But he didn't look away either. When you got your first car, I continued, did you offer to share it? He frowned slightly. That's not the same thing. Why not? Because that was different, he said. That was given to you, I finished. Silence. My mom shifted uncomfortably. That's not fair, she said. I looked at her. Exactly, I replied. The word landed harder than I expected. Because it wasn't just about the car. Or college. Or opportunities. It was about everything. All the small moments that had been dismissed, overlooked, justified. All the times fair had never actually been the point. Until now. Michael's expression changed. Not confused. Not calm. Something sharper. You're really going to do this? He asked. Do what? Act like this doesn't affect anyone else, he said. Like we're not part of this. I held his gaze. You're not, I said. That did it. The air shifted. My dad finally spoke, his voice firmer than before. Sarah, he said, that's not how families work. I looked at him. Really looked at him. For you, I said. That stopped him. Because he didn't have an answer for that. None of them did. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't list everything. I didn't need to. Because for the first time, I wasn't trying to be understood. I was just done explaining. I'm not splitting anything, I said calmly. My mom inhaled sharply. Michael leaned back, shaking his head slightly. This is unbelievable, he muttered. No, I said. It's just new to you. That line stayed in the air. Heavy. Uncomfortable. True. No one spoke after that. Dinner ended quietly. Not resolved. Not fixed. Just over. And as I stood up to leave, I could feel it. The shift. Not just in the room. In everything. Because for the first time, I hadn't stepped back. I hadn't adjusted. I hadn't made it easier for them. And now, they didn't know what to do with me. They didn't call the next day. That was the first thing I noticed. No, did you get home safe? No, let's talk about last night. No attempt to smooth anything over. Just silence. The kind that isn't accidental. The kind that means something changed, and no one knows how to move around it yet. I didn't reach out either. Not to fix it. Not to explain myself. Not to make things easier. I just went back to my routine. Work in the morning. Coffee in the same chipped mug I'd had for years. Quiet apartment, the kind of silence that actually felt like mine. But even in that quiet, I could feel it. Something had shifted permanently. Not broken. Just reset. A few days passed before my mom finally called. I let it ring once. Twice. Then answered. Hi, I said. Her voice came through softer than usual. Hi, honey. A pause. I've been thinking about the other night, she said. Of course you have. Okay, I replied. I don't want things to feel tense between us, she continued. That's not what I want. I leaned against the counter, staring out the window. What do you want? I asked. Another pause. Longer this time. I just want us to be a family, she said. There it was again. That word. Family. It sounded simple. But it never had been. We are, I said. That's not what it feels like, she replied quietly. I didn't answer right away. Because for the first time, I wasn't trying to fix how something felt for her. I'm not doing anything to you, I said. I'm just not doing anything for you either. Silence. Not shocked. Not angry. Just quiet. I think you're upset, she said carefully. No, I replied. I think I'm clear. That ended the conversation faster than anything else could have. We hung up without resolving anything. And strangely, I didn't feel bad about it. That was new. The following weekend, I went back to Ithaca. Not because anyone asked me to. Because I wanted to see the house. My grandmother's house. It sat exactly the way I remembered it. Quiet street. Trees lining the edges of the property. Nothing flashy. Nothing designed to impress. But solid. Intentional. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The air felt different. Still. Not empty. Just settled. Like everything in that house had already decided where it belonged. I walked through slowly. The living room. The kitchen. The hallway where the light always hit at the same angle in the afternoon. Everything was familiar. And for the first time, it felt like it was mine. Not borrowed. Not temporary. Mine. I sat down at the kitchen table and let myself be still for a minute. No noise. No expectations. No one watching. And that's when I realized something. This was what she had left me. Not just the house. Not just the money. Space. Space to exist without being measured. Without being compared. Without being quietly pushed into a smaller version of myself. And the more I sat there, the clearer it became. She hadn't chosen me because I needed it. She chose me because I wouldn't misuse it. Because I wouldn't turn it into something it wasn't meant to be. My phone buzzed on the table. Michael. Of course. I stared at the screen for a second before answering. Hey, I said. His voice was tighter this time. Where are you? In Ithaca. A pause. You went there without telling anyone? Yes. Another pause. We need to talk, he said. No, I replied. That stopped him. What do you mean no? I mean I'm not having the same conversation again, I said. This isn't the same conversation, he insisted. This is about figuring things out. For you, I said. Silence. Then, sharper this time. You're being selfish. There it was. Finally. No careful wording. No pretending. Just honest. I didn't react right away. Because I had been waiting for that word. I've always been selfish, I said calmly. That's not true, he said quickly. No, I replied. You just didn't notice before. That landed. Hard. Because it forced him to see something he hadn't considered. I had always been taking care of myself. I just hadn't asked them for anything. And now that I wasn't offering anything either, it felt like something had been taken away from them. You think you're better than us now? He asked. I almost smiled. No, I said. I just think you're seeing me for the first time. He didn't respond. Because there wasn't a clean way to argue with that. We ended the call without resolving anything. Again. And this time I knew we wouldn't. Not in the way he wanted. I stayed in Ithaca until the evening. Walked through the house again. Opened windows. Let the air move. And before I left, I stood in the doorway and looked back one last time. Not to memorize it. Just to acknowledge it. Because this wasn't about proving anything to anyone else. It never had been. It was about finally not having to prove anything at all. By the time I drove back to Buffalo, I wasn't thinking about the argument. Or my parents. Or Michael. I was thinking about something simpler. Something quieter. For most of my life, I had been placed in a role. The backup. The one who needed less. The one who got less. And I let that happen. Because it made everything easier. But now, that version of me didn't exist anymore. Not because I changed. Because I stopped agreeing with it. And that changes everything. Now, months later, nothing looks that different on the outside. Same apartment. Same job. Same routine. But when I walk into a room with them now, they hesitate. They listen. They measure their words. Not out of kindness. Out of uncertainty. And I don't fix that for them. I let it stay. Because maybe that's the point. Maybe this was never about the money. Or the house. Or the will. Maybe it was about finally being seen. Even if it took something this big to force it. And I keep coming back to the same question. If I had given them what they expected, would anything actually have changed? Or would I have just gone back to being someone they never really tried to understand? The first holiday after everything felt different. Not dramatic. No arguments waiting at the door. No tension thick enough to cut through. Just quieter. Like everyone had agreed, without saying it out loud, to be careful. I almost didn't go. I sat in my apartment in Buffalo that morning, coffee in my hands, staring at my phone while my mom's message sat unread for a few minutes longer than it needed to. Dinner at 5. We'd really like you there. Not, you should come. Not, we expect you. We'd like you there. That was new. And for a second, I thought about not responding. Not to prove anything. Just to see what it felt like to choose myself without considering them at all. But I went. Not for them. For me. Because avoiding it would have felt like I was still reacting to something. And I wasn't anymore. When I pulled into the driveway in Amherst, nothing had changed on the outside. Same house. Same lights. Same quiet neighborhood. But inside, it felt like stepping into a room where everyone already knew the rules had changed. My dad opened the door. Hey, he said, softer than usual. Hey. He stepped aside, letting me in without another word. No comments about being late. No questions. Just space. My mom was in the kitchen. She turned when she saw me, wiping her hands on a towel like she always did. Hi, she said. Hi. She hesitated for a second, then walked over and hugged me. Not tight. Not lingering. Just real. Michael and Linda were already there. Michael looked up from the table when I walked in. There was no smirk this time. No casual confidence. Just a small nod. Hey, hey. Linda gave me a quiet smile. Good to see you. You too. We all sat down. Same table. Same seats. But no one rushed to fill the silence this time. It just existed. Dinner started slowly. My mom asked about work again. I answered. Briefly. But not defensively. My dad talked about something small, something safe. Michael didn't interrupt. Didn't steer the conversation. Didn't take control of it the way he usually would. He listened. That was new. At one point, Linda asked, "Have you been back to Ithaca?" I nodded. Yeah, a couple times. How is it? She asked. Quiet, I said. She nodded like she understood what that meant. Michael didn't say anything, but I saw it. That flicker of something in his expression. Not anger. Not resentment. Something closer to acceptance. Or maybe just exhaustion. The conversation moved on. Not forced. Not tense. Just different. And for the first time, it didn't feel like I was sitting on the outside of it. Or underneath it. I was just there. Equal. Not because they decided I was. Because I stopped accepting anything less. After dinner, we didn't rush to clean up. No one jumped into roles automatically. We just stayed at the table a little longer. And that's when my mom spoke again. Not to everyone. To me. I've been thinking, she said quietly. I looked at her. About what you said, she added. I didn't ask which part. She already knew. I think. We didn't always see you clearly, she admitted. The room went still. Not tense. Just attentive. My dad didn't interrupt. Michael didn't either. They both let her speak. That doesn't mean we didn't care, she continued. But I think we got used to seeing things a certain way. I held her gaze. I know, I said. Because I did. That was the thing. They hadn't been trying to hurt me. They just never questioned the version of me they were comfortable with. And I think, she hesitated, then continued, I think we expected you to stay that way. There it was. Simple. Honest. Late. But still real. I nodded once. I know, I said again. No anger. No bitterness. Just acknowledgement. Michael leaned back slightly in his chair, exhaling under his breath. I guess we all did, he said. I glanced at him. He didn't look at me right away. But when he did, there was something different there. Not calculation. Not control. Just recognition. And for the first time, it didn't feel like something I had to fight for. It was just there. We didn't turn that moment into something bigger. No long discussion. No emotional breakdown. Just a quiet understanding that settled into the space between us. Later, when I stood up to leave, no one tried to stop me. No one asked me to stay longer. No one made it heavy. My mom walked me to the door. Drive safe, she said. I will. She hesitated for a second. Then added, I'm glad you came. I looked at her. Not searching for anything. Not waiting for more. I am too, I said. And I meant it. When I got back to my apartment that night, everything looked the same. Same couch. Same kitchen. Same quiet. But I didn't feel like I was carrying anything with me anymore. Not expectations. Not pressure. Not the need to explain myself. Just space. And I think that's what my grandmother gave me. Not money. Not a house. Not something to prove. She gave me the one thing I never had growing up. The freedom to exist without being reduced to something smaller. And now that I have it, I'm not giving it back. Not to keep the peace. Not to make things easier. Not even for family. Because for the first time, I understand something I didn't before. It was never about what they gave me. It was about what I stopped accepting. And now, when I think back to that moment in the lawyer's office, to the silence, to the way everyone looked at me like they didn't recognize me, I don't feel uncomfortable anymore. I don't feel out of place. I don't feel like I need to explain who I am. I just let them see it, even if it took them this long. And I still wonder sometimes, if she hadn't done that, if nothing had forced them to look at me differently, would I still be sitting at that table playing the same role? Or was I always going to outgrow it, eventually?